Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to call to order our meeting of our Fiscal Committee, first meeting of January. I haven't met since actually October 2nd, and the first thing we want to do is have approval of our minutes from that meeting.
Move approval, Aguilar.
Second.
We have a first and a second, and all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion will carry. Again, welcome to everybody on Channel 16 and that may be watching online at siouxfalls.org. We have one agenda item today. We have a rather significant number of police officers that stated that they will be retiring in the first quarter of 2014, and another significant number that are eligible for retirement. And with the recent changes to our pension plan, we expect this could become an issue, and with the considerable amount of time that it takes to get a police officer up to speed, trained, et cetera, it's about 8 months, I believe. So we have, we're going to talk about our police department staffing, and I believe Mr. O'Toole or Chief Bartell will be our first person to talk to this issue.
Good afternoon, Doug Barthel, Police Chief. You're correct. Actually, after the pension changes were approved, we began to realize that there was a potential for a large number of retirements that could take place at once. It isn't the fact that there are people that are retiring early or changing their plans because of the pension plans that more are retiring. We just are in a situation where rather than having retirement spread out a little more systematically over the years, we're basically seeing a situation where there aren't anybody, or currently it doesn't sound like anybody's going to retire in 2013, and rather instead all of those retirements are going to wait until 2014 and lump in together with that. I surveyed our officers, and between now and spring of 2014, there's 22 people that are either eligible or will be eligible to retire. Of those 22, 13 have stated their intention to retire in 2014. About half of those right at the beginning of 2014, so in January, and the other half later in the spring. So with those 13 officers leaving basically pretty close to the same time, we wanted to do some planning so that we're able to hire ahead and get some officers in place. And as Councilor Karski stated, it takes 8 months just to train an officer from the day they're hired until they're out and on their own. And if you back that up, it also takes several months just for the hiring process. The selection process is pretty lengthy, although we have done several things along with HR to streamline that. But just the posting of the openings, the testing, we do psychological exams, polygraph exams, backgrounds. It's a lengthy process, and frankly, we want to take our time, make sure that we get the right people for the job. We aren't going to just fill the spot because we have an opening. So it's not like a lot of positions where you may have an opening and within a month or so you can probably have it filled. With us, it takes a number of months. And in addition to that, our hands are also somewhat tied because every officer that's hired in this state has to, within their first year of employment, become certified through the state. And to do that, they have to attend a 13-week academy and peer. There's only 3 of those that are offered every year. So we're competing with every department in the state to get slots in those classes, which are usually only about 40 or so. And generally, we're pretty good about able to reserve those positions ahead of time, but it's a first come, first serve. So with that challenge, in addition to this large number going at once, we felt it necessary to begin this process basically at the beginning of 2013. So right now we have 3 vacancies, and we're going to have another here very soon for an officer that's leaving. So we have 4 current vacancies, and our plan is to hire half of those 13 in our middle of February 19th, I believe is the start date for our next class. So our plan is to hire 10 officers in that class. So 4 of them will be to just fill normal vacancies we have. 6 are going to be new positions that will be basically hire ahead positions for these anticipated retirements. So by the time they're out and on their own, it's going to be basically the end of October. So we'll have them for about 2 months or so before the officers retire. So, which will be perfect. Frankly, it'd be a luxury to have an officer that's in place and ready to go when an officer retires. And we do some of that, you know, well, we have been doing that for years, but never to quite this extent with these numbers. The other unfortunate part is just normal attrition throughout the year. Take, for example, last year we had 10 officers that left. A portion of those are retirements. Some are people that leave or maybe a termination or so. And the year before we had 6. So there's always that normal attrition that's going on. So like I said, right now we've got basically 4 vacancies. So the odds of us getting to the end of October and having all 6 of these additional people and no one else has left are basically slim to none. But that's our plan, to try and get ahead of that. And then in addition to that, we also would like to hire the other half, the 7, in our August class. So they would basically be out and about, or out and on their own by spring when the other group of officers plan their retirement. So part of our reason coming to you is to let you know what our plan is, that we're working to try and cover that. Because frankly, if we wait until they leave and have 13 vacancies all at once, it would have a definite impact on our department. We'd probably have to look at other ways to reassign staff to cover for that, and it would probably be 2015 or later before we could ever get all of them hired, in addition to our normal attrition. So just to let you know that we're working and have a plan to cover that so we don't end up with these huge gaps. And then also, more importantly, there are some budget implications with this. It is possible, given that plan, if no one were to leave between now and the end of the year and there were no other vacancies in our budget, worst case scenario, this could have a little over $500,000 impact to our budget, which would be over and above what we've budgeted for. You can mark my word, there's no way that it will ever get to that level, just because I know the fact that with normal attrition, well, for example, right now we have the 3 vacancies. That salary is building, and so that'll be there till the middle of February. We have 1 officer that's on military active duty. His salary is sitting there. So there are ways to cover some of that additional funds that we'll need for that, and put on top of that other normal attrition that we're going to have. So, but we don't want this to come as a surprise if later in the year we do, you know, we obviously won't know this until we get much later in the year. You know, frankly, we won't run out of money until the last month of the year, but we don't want it to be a surprise if that were to happen and we have to come to you. And there is a little bit of a fallback on that. As I said, we're hiring half of them next month. The other half we're doing in August. If we start to see that we've had other unexpected issues with our budget, no one else is leaving, looks like things are going to be a lot tighter, maybe with the economy or the city and so forth, then we simply will have to change our plans for that August class where we're going to hire ahead and just have to improvise, and we'll wait for those vacancies to actually occur in 2014. So we're confident it's a good plan, one that's going to help cover those vacancies, and if things go as they do historically, it likely will have a very small impact on the budget, and frankly, I think it's very possible that we may not even need a supplement at the end of the year. But again, we don't want it to come as a surprise if that should occur. So I've got Bill O'Toole here with Human Resources, along with Kim Stalkin, who helps with all of our hiring and selection process, and then also Tracy Turback's here as well from Finance. So be happy to answer any questions or concerns.
Questions from council? Greg?
First comment is, I know a lot of times departments get criticized for we don't bring these items like this through a committee before they come onto the full council. And I'd like to at least acknowledge whoever it was who scheduled this meeting with Fiscal for reaching out to us in an effort to communicate better. So I don't know how that happened, but I want to make sure that they're thanked for that effort. If that was Bill O'Toole, I appreciate it. I just want to make sure I say that. And then Doug, as well, the number of officers we have today, how many are there? And the percentage-wise, how many are retiring as far as 13 goes? Is that?
Well, we have 222 sworn positions, so roughly 5%, I suppose.
Is this the biggest group you've ever had, or has ever occurred? Is this?
Well, we've had larger groups of, or I shouldn't say large, you know, they aren't all 13 going at once. I can recall groups of, 10 people retiring at once. There used to be some different advantages to retiring at the end of the year, and we used to get a lot of retirements that would occur right after the first of the year, right before, some tax advantages, things like that. But generally, we haven't seen that. It kind of ebbs and flows, and I think it was just kind of a whole aligning of the stars where we ended up with a large group that are eligible, and then with the pension plan changes, that just caused them to stack up a little bit. Frankly, I don't like to see anybody retire because I hate to lose them and lose the experience just because of the amount of expense and time that it takes to get an officer fully trained and then just getting them to a level where they're comfortable to do a lot of this on their own. So the fact that at least a half dozen of these officers that we're going to retire this year, I'm now able to put off for another year, for me it's great. And it gives us some time to help plan for that as well. So granted, it's not spread out over the year, but I would take, nothing against a brand new officer, but I would take an officer with 25 years on any day over a one-year one.
My kind of summation of that was that really, are you concerned or worried about it trending or something bigger that's looming down the trail that'll find ourselves in a position where we have another large group and that they're all leaving because they're not happy and all of a sudden we've got a bigger problem to deal with? You're not worried about what's happening, I guess is what I'm asking.
No, and this is an annual thing that I do at the beginning of every year. I send out, just basically a survey of those that are eligible, and frankly, most of them are all really good about it because they don't want to leave the department in a mess. And we don't have a lot of people that leave here bitter or unhappy, and so they want to see that good transition, and so they're really pretty good about letting us know here's what my plans are. And retirement's a big thing, and it's a huge decision to get to that point. I mean, so for them to commit to a year from now is pretty significant, and I never hold any of them to it, and I always tell them you can always up to the last day I'll take you back if you don't want to leave. But I don't anticipate a huge exodus. Actually, of that group, I think there's really only maybe one or two supervisors in the group. There are a fair number of upper-level command staff that are eligible or will be in the coming years, but we're also working on some succession planning with that as well, and hope to have some things in place too, so that we leave things running smooth, and so the day myself or whoever walks out the door, the place keeps on running just as usual. So
very good, thank you.
Councilor Aguilar.
Yes, Chief, I understand that the training portion of it is pretty intense, but it is also my understanding that the process of hiring itself is fairly intense also. Could you kind of go into the process itself?
Sure. The openings are, and Kim can maybe speak to it too, but the openings are posted first, and actually we're in the middle of a hiring phase right now, and we've also posted again for the next list. But the first step is they take a written examination. One of the things that we streamline with that is the next phase we're now able to do on the same day. They take the test online or basically on a computer, and so we're able to score the test immediately. If they reach a passing score, then they take a video testing. Basically, they watch a series of scenarios, and then they have to respond to that verbally as if they're the police officer responding to the scene. In the past, we had to schedule all of those, and so that took weeks to do. So now we do all of that in one day. After those two tests, if they have a combined passing score, we then advance them to the interview phase. From that phase, there's 3 from our department and an HR representative. Usually Kim takes care of that. They are given a series of questions and then a score ranked from that. And when that's all done, everyone's ranked and placed in their order. And then depending on the number of openings we have, we just start at number 1 and start making conditional job offers. Once a conditional job offer is made, they're then sent for psychological testing. If they fail that, they're done. If they pass that, we then begin a background investigation. We have assigned people within our department that do background investigations in addition to their regular work. It may require them actually traveling out of town. They'll meet with former neighbors, employers, not just the people you put as a reference on your resume, and really do some digging and find out where they are or who they are, where they come from, any issues there might be. I'd much rather spend the money up front doing that than be stuck with a problem for 25 years. Once that's completed and they've done well on all of those, they've passed psychological, we're satisfied with the background, they're then given a polygraph examination just to make sure that there isn't anything else in their past. And frankly, I could tell you some stories about some of the things that have been unearthed in those, but we won't go into all that. But so if they pass that, then the final phase is a medical and drug screening. And once they've gotten through that phase, then they're officially hired. So from the day a person sees the ad in the paper and then comes down and takes the test or just basically signs the application till they actually start with us is probably pretty close to a year, maybe not quite that long, but it's a lengthy process, and it's not an easy one. We'll have several hundred applicants, and like now we're trying to find 10 out of a few hundred that we started with, and we'll be lucky if we get 10 out of there. So,
thank you.
Sure.
Councilor Enneman?
Yeah, Chief, could you tell us at what point in time do you anticipate coming to us for a supplemental? Do you have it kind of tagged when you might be doing that, or?
I wouldn't anticipate it would be until very late in the year. We'll start to do some projections as we get later in the year and work closely with finance on that, and that's why when we put this whole plan in place, we sat down with finance and with HR and then ultimately met with the mayor and now you folks too. But so they're pretty good about it, being able to project that, and we can see what future expenses there might be. But I wouldn't think it would happen until real late. Well, frankly, we won't run out of money until, like I said, the last month. But I would hope we would have some idea if that's going to be coming, within the last few months of the year.
Okay, and you'll have a pretty good idea too as far as additional needs for next year.
Yes.
And plan accordingly as you work on the budget, begin to work on that budget now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions from the committee? I have a couple, if I may, Chief. What is the cost to send somebody to the academy?
The academy at the state is free, and actually the reason it's free is because, well, part of it's run by the Division of Criminal Investigation, but the academy wouldn't take place if it wasn't for the help from other departments around the state. So we have, like, for example, SWAT officers that will go out and teach building searches. We have officers that go out and help teach accident investigations. So of the 13 weeks, it's kind of split up amongst various people throughout the state, and so because of that, we're able to do it at no cost. So.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. Is there any preference given to applicants that may have attended the academy already?
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, of these 10 that we're hiring, 2 are already certified. So if we can get an officer that's already certified within the state, that's a huge plus because we can get them out on the street 13 weeks sooner than the others. And if you have someone that's an officer from out of state, there's also a possibility that they can take the reciprocity test and cut that down to only a couple of weeks that they have to go out to get a few of the state or localized refresher things. But so we don't necessarily give preference to them in the hiring process, but it is possible that they could start out a step or two higher in the salary. So there's some incentive there for them to want to come here. And frankly, if you're just looking at in-state applicants that might already be with another department, being the largest in the state, there's certainly some benefit to that.
Any other questions regarding our one agenda item?
And I will give credit to Bill O'Toole and Tracy Turback for, matter of fact, I think it might have been Bill that originally had the idea to come here, so.
Great.
And thank you to all of you. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks for your time.
Any other open discussion items? Hearing none, we should have a motion to adjourn, I imagine.
So move, Entman.
We have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Adjourned.